Joe, I'm excited to continue the conversation where we left off last time, but I think, what's the topic for today again?
It's due diligence, the due diligence process. And what does that kind of look like?
Oh gosh, that's something that surprises a lot of people, to be honest. A lot of people think due diligence is basically, here's what I make, and now give me what you're gonna pay the company for, and
You mean
walk
it's not
away.
just that? You just don't say, hey, here's my company, give me, $10, $20 million?
Well, I mean, in a society which we should all live in, where everyone respects each other and is honest to each other, that would be great. But well, we're not in that world.
You mean sometimes the numbers aren't actually the numbers?
Whoa. Sometimes there aren't even numbers. Let's be honest here.
So why don't you tell me about the worst case scenario in your experience of going through due diligence on how ugly it could get?
So, not to name names or anything like that, I remember one time when I was looking at a company, I was doing a deep dive for an angel group, and they said, please look at this company, let us know your thoughts. And I was, we have the due diligence criteria where you're looking at, the team, you're contacting the advisors, you're contacting the employees, if it is a startup, find out the number of hours, seeing if there's all the correct documents, looking at the cap table, and the cap table is who has what in the company, looking at the agreements for their contracts for their sales. The data room and that, even for early stage companies, is pretty extensive. But later on we'll go into more mid-market companies. And it wasn't the ugliest thing. I'm saying something with a happy ending. I'm not saying the ones where, you find out this guy has, $100,000 in liens against him and all the money he's raised is going to that. Or there's this advisor in the background that he owes $200,000 to, or this lawyer and all this others that while you're doing due diligence, they call you up and they go, hey, Shawn, I know you're doing due diligence on this guy, but I just want to let you know that he owes me this much money. And if you guys pay him, I'm going to collect. But I'd rather him just fail in life because he's an evil person and he screwed me for the last year. And you go, oh, well, I'll tell the other angels this so they don't write a check. I'm not going to go into those stories.
Okay.
But the one story I am going to go into, as you might have gathered that some of these were kind of might have.
Some of them crash and burn. In fact, I'm don't mean to go on a rabbit trail here, but how many deals don't go through that start? The numbers that I heard.
Oh, I did this. I just wanted for a cinematic effect to be on my face there.
Oh, okay.
That shock, so each step of the process, you're talking, we'll say half gets cut off. And what I mean by each step of the process, you have we're going to talk to this number of angels, cuts off. This number shows a little bit of interest, cuts off. This number shows that they have the meetings. This number shows, and it keeps going. And even when you're in the due diligence phase of it, of those deals and people are spending a lot of money to go through due diligence,
right.
Maybe 30-40% actually go all the way through. Could even be less, depending on the situation. A lot of things you don't have control over, but from start to end, it's an inverted hockey stick.
Gotcha.
If that's the best way to look at it. And it's quite extensive. But the one that I was going to say the story.
Yes, please. Sorry.
And it does kind of have a happy end into it in a way. Was I remember looking at this one. I was diving into this one company, and out of nowhere, this one person started getting a ridiculous ton of money. And I was looking at it going, this doesn't make sense to me. Like, who is this person?
An employee.
Well, yeah, technically like an employee, but out of nowhere, this one person just shows up and starts getting paid, and it just was odd.
Interesting.
So going back to finding out, and it's hard to actually call people and ask this, but what ended up happening was the wife of the husband started using her maiden name to go out to investors that only invested in women co-founded companies. So even though she was never part of the company, in due diligence, it kind of found out, oh, wait, she kind of is in a way on paper to go out to angels to collect money. And then you're like, okay, how do we have this conversation? Is she part of the company? She's employed, you're paying her, but she doesn't do anything except for she's pitching. But that was all discovered in due diligence for this one early stage startup. And they did get a check from some people, but not all the ones that they could have gotten a check from.
Right. So most things come out during due diligence, and that's the purpose of it, right?
I would say almost everything comes out in due diligence because, especially, with startups, you can hide a couple of things, but when you're starting to get more established companies, the due diligence part is so thorough. I'm setting up a data room right now for a company, and it's literally, when was it founded till now? I need contracts of every employee, even if it was an intern, to make sure that anything they worked on was transferred to the company, and the company owns all the IP, all the intellectual property rights, everything. Like everything needs to be tracked. If this person was let go, how are they let go? And you'll hear the founder, oh yeah, he's my buddy. We went and had a beer, and I let him go. And you're like, oh wow, that's gonna come back to haunt you someday. So let's go back. Like everything it all comes out. Everything.
Well, and this is where I was talking about last session. We were talking about the owner, the CEO, taking their eye off the ball because there's a lot of distractions here. And trying to make sure that you address all the items in due diligence and keep your eye on the company is you really got to know how to split your time up. And leveraging the calendaring system is probably a way to do that.
Oh, Joe, I got to find out more about this calendaring system, but I also want to comment on that where just setting up the data room, that's a full-time job for a couple weeks. Just answering a question needed is a full-time. Just reaching out to investors, having a conversation. All these things are full-time jobs, and if you're running a company, try and do it yourself. Everyone has the same amount of time in the day.
Right.
Everyone's got to sleep a little bit, right? Everyone's got to, have some type of balance. And at the first month, 2 months, 3 months, maybe you can do a complete shift. But these processes are 6 to 9 months. You're eventually going to break, and you don't want to break when it's everything's on the line. So having an outside person come in, or outside parties like an investment banker or that to help, there's a reason why a lot of people say that they really benefited from it. They would do it again on their second, third acquisition. They always have the banker next to them on their team. But tell me about the calendar system.
Well, before we go there, but this is critical no matter where you're at in your business life cycle of having the right advisors involved. You need to have a great accountant, whether it's internal or external, your legal advice, your investment strategies, your investment resources. So your business coach, of course. And so you need to surround yourself with the right resources and the right partnerships, the right relationships to take your company from wherever it is to wherever you want to go, whether it's exiting, whether it's expanding, whatever it is. You've got to have that right overall team. And we talked a little bit last time about the team, but the team includes all of your advisors. And that's a critical piece that sometimes people miss.
Joe, let's talk about this team a little bit more, because what a lot of people don't realize also is they think, okay, I want to sell my company a year from now. So, I'll just put everything together right now and sell. But in reality, if that team you had just talked about from day one is there the whole time building it, you're not going to go back to redo 3 years of financials because they were already done. You're not going to go back and get in all these processes and these data books and the HR manual for the team and all. You're not, because they were already there. And actually, what people don't quite get is when they're there from the beginning, you can actually use them the whole time. Not just use them, right now when it's kind of too late, where you don't have that extra, I guess in Mario Brothers, that mushroom to make you big. You have that earlier on, so you can get that growth. You can 10x what you're doing from earlier on.
Well, and I've got to comment on that, because this is when you first start your company, you've got to know what's your exit strategy, because you can't take it with you. I mean, if your exit strategy is to give it to the kids or ESOP it or go public, whatever it is, at that very beginning phase, that's when you start putting the team together, start thinking about that, not when, oh, I want to sell it in 6 months. It's kind of, you're playing catch up then, and it's going to be a lot harder.
So we talked about getting the team and that the accountant from day one, or at least earlier on,
Right.
while you're growing. Then the due diligence process. I mean, we still haven't gone too deep into that. How much information do you really want to know about the due diligence process?
Why don't we just cover the top 4 areas, and then we can talk about that more later in each of the areas. So thank you very much for joining us today, and look forward to seeing you next week when we're going to talk about investors.
Oh, or we could go a little bit more into due diligence, but whatever. It's going to be a great, great conversation.
Thank you.